Hello everyone. We have Sanketh with us. He's all in the he's here, and he has very good marks in mathematics. 295.
Yeah, just about it.
आप लोग डिस्कस करते हो जो भी आपको डाउट ये ना हो
Okay, so good morning everyone. So as sir had introduced me, my name is Sanketh Ajmera, and this was my second attempt. So last year also I had given my attempt, and in that attempt I was scoring around 227 marks. So I'll just break it up for you. Paper 1 was, I think, somewhere around 113 and 114, and this year I am scoring around 295, and paper 1 is around 147 and 148. So I will tell you how the score improved in 1 year, what are the reasons for it, and so we'll talk about it. But first of all, how many of you have written this year's prelims? Nobody. So you are all preparing for the next year. So okay, I think then I'll talk about a general overview of how my preparation went, how I started. I think this is the time you're starting, right? Okay. So I'll see what these people are saying also. Okay, right. So I will talk to you about little things about my strategy, which have been very important right from the very beginning. So some of the things, I think it first begins with your note taking. And I am sure you have received your notes or something from whichever institute you will receive your notes, and you will have to refer some reference books or textbooks. And I remember when I got my books, I think the height was around this much. So the very first feeling was ki, okay, I have to kya hua? आवाज नहीं आ रही? अच्छा. So anyway, so इतने सारे books थे. So the very first thing is that I realized कि okay, I have to give my exam in 1 day, 3 + 3 hours. How am I going to do all of this? Even if I want to revise, how should I, compile all of it into a 1 hour or 2 hour revision kind of thing. So the very first thing I thought, definitely I need my own notes, and they will be helpful for revision. And secondly, no notes or no textbook or whatever is going to be replacing whatever I gain from this preparation. So I, painstakingly did my note taking in 3 or 4 steps. So first of all, I think you have all looked at the syllabus, right? And there are, in paper 1 you have 6 chapters, and paper 2 you have 7 chapters, right? So 1, 2, whatever, 6. So I I started off note taking like this. So the first chapter is your linear algebra. So in every chapter, UPSC has very clearly mentioned what the topics are. So I used to take one topic or maybe 2 to 3 topics. Then my notes went like this. So my note used to consist of 3 to 4 parts. The very first part was I used to write the formulae related to it, or formulae or whatever concept. So this used to take around half or 1 page. This was, I'm talking in terms of 2 to 3 keywords, whether it's an ordinary differential equation. So it will, take a topic like equations of first order, but not of first degree. Okay. So formulae, I just noted down the formulae, 2 to 3 formulas or whatever, half to 1 page. Then I, solved one example, solved one very easy or basic example. And then I used to solve some conceptual ones, which used to be a little more difficult than that. And this used to consume my 1 or 2 pages. Then I directly solved PYQs related to that topic. I don't know why this is not working. Okay. So PYQs related to that subtopic of the given topic. So, and finally, if there are any extra sources that I'm referring to, or if I'm taking tests in the future, I used to add some extra questions. So all of this would have comprised my notes for that particular subtopic in a given topic. So all of this, if I did this whole thing, for example, say for OD, it went out to around 20 to 30 pages. And that is something that I could revise in less than 1 hour. So this was not just my notes. This was also my revision notes. This was also containing all of the answers to the previous year's questions. I did it from at least the last 10 years. So hardly if it's a subtopic, you will not have more than 5-6 questions in the last 10 years. So this was one set of notes, revision notes, previous year's questions, and also the questions that I used to get from different sources. So that was the starting point of my preparation. And I realized that if I didn't do all of it, then none of my preparation was amounting to anything, because if I'm reading from the books, if I'm solving 10 questions, a month later, I'm forgetting all of that. So I used to take down my notes like this. So eventually I used to create files out of it, and I created 4 files and 1 file for each section. So around, I think it was hardly 70-80 pages per file into 4. So 4 sections, 4 files. So, and it was really easy to revise before the exam, and even between paper 1, paper 2, you could have just, I was even checking those. So I would request you to create your own notes, not just in this manner, but this is a very comprehensive manner in which I created, which, especially the most important aspect is this one. Instead of taking away questions from a lot of books, which is this part comes very later. So you might find some questions which have a lot of concepts, which might be, some people call it fancy questions. I used to call it fancy questions. So those come very later. PYQs come much before that. So this is something that I think you should start from very early on. And the moment you finish your understanding of a particular concept, please do PYQs instead of doing too many questions for my particular book. Okay. So that was about note taking. And I hope you will do your notes, because I think there has been no replacement for any other substitute. There is no other substitute anywhere else. Even if you're taking coaching, do take, but take it down in a way which is very compact, which is also has everything in it, but at the same time, which is something that only you can understand. Don't worry about anybody else. I have my notes. If I give it to you, probably you will not understand it. Probably you will, but doesn't matter. It's helped me, and that's the end of it. And number 2 is about test taking. And have any of you attempted any tests until now? Okay. So test is a very big aspect. Test taking is a very important aspect of the entire preparation. See, because the thing is, if the exam is of 3 hours, and if I give you, say, 5 hours to solve the same exam, I'm sure everybody in this room will be scoring 350 plus. But that's the beauty of it, right? You have to finish it in three hours. So test taking in that particular sense forms one important aspect, because of the, okay, how do I move this? किसी को पता नहीं? ये वाला? अच्छा, ठीक. Okay, so test taking, I'll just write it in the next part. So again, it's important for time management. Time management in the sense that in how many minutes or in how many hours you are able to solve the examination. One target I used to keep was, if it's a 3-hour examination and you have to, I'm sure you've looked at the pattern, you have to solve 5 questions, right? You have 4 questions in each section, and you have to choose 5 among them. So I used to do it in such a way that I gave 30 minutes for each question, so that I finished the entire thing in 2.5 hours. And the rest 30 minutes I used to keep aside to check whether my solutions are correct or not. Although it did not really ideally work, it went out to, I could solve it in 2 hours 40 minutes or 2 hours 45 minutes. But that extra time that I kept, actually, when I was in the real examination, when I could actually go back and see, I could see that I made a little mistakes, which could have costed me a lot. So if you keep solving, initially it used to take more than 3 hours. But if you keep on solving, you can get it very much under 2 hours 45 minutes. And you will have the remaining time to check before you actually submit your paper. So that is one aspect of this thing. And number 2, the test taking part is also important, because you will have difficulty in choosing the questions. So in section 1, you will have 1, 2, 3, and 4 questions, and in section B, say, you will have again 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so this one is compulsory, and the other one is also compulsory. Now, either you choose 2 from here, or 1 and 1 from here, or 2 and 1, or 1 and 2. So whichever it is going to be is something that it's your choice entirely. So again, I this year my score was around 295, and in the second one it was coming around 148. And honestly speaking, although these are very good marks, if I made a little mistake during my second paper in choosing the question. In fact, I could have chosen 2 questions from the first part in section A and 1 from here. But I was so afraid of algebra that I chose only 1, and I ended up choosing a physics question that I was not even able to solve. So these kind of things will not happen with you if you take enough tests. And I remember after prelims and the time before mains, I solved around 20-25 question papers, which are full length. So 3-hour exam papers. So it's not that these are very too many, but whenever the goal is that whenever you find your comfort zone, that is the sign to stop, right? And test taking, I believe, suppose if you're going to attempt prelims next year, so, and I hope you will start your prelims preparation 2 to 3 months before prelims. So I suppose at least you finish 70 to 80% of your syllabus by then, and also try to attempt as many tests. If in case if you are attempting 1 full test series, that is really great. But no matter how much you have finished, please do attempt tests even before prelims, so that once, because you will get a lot of break. You'll take away the 2 to 3 months only for prelims preparation, and by the time you clear prelims and come back to mains maths preparation, and that is when you'll start you'll look at the notes that you've only written and feel like, okay, when did I do all this? So you, instead of losing that touch, right, I would suggest you start it, you finish a lot of your syllabus, either 70%, 80%, or 60%, in fact, whatever it is, but do also take tests along with it. So that is so tests and your this thing, note making. So again, the 3 important aspects I've told you until now. One is your syllabus, and number 2 is your PYQs, and number 3 is your tests. Okay, so these 2 will help in your note preparation, and again these 2 will also help you in test taking. Okay, so never ever, so tests are again something that are external. This is not something that UPSC is giving you. Whether you do the other thing or not, this is something that UPSC is directly communicating it to you with one 3-page syllabus and the PYQs. So the I always used to have the syllabus pasted on my desk or whatever, and PYQs, I used to have a small book which had PYQs from the last 20-25 years or something. So that literally was the, whatever you call it, you want to call it Bible or Quran or whatever, that used to be in one hand when I was preparing with my optional. Okay, so that is an important aspect. And secondly, when I told you about one thing, I forgot to tell here, I told you about note taking, right? Suppose we are talking about that particular topic, say ODE topic, we were just talking about it, equations of first order but not of first degree, right? So if you look, so you will do the formula, you will solve some complex and easy questions. But now when you do your PYQs, what you will realize is that, see, UPSC will give you questions in such a manner that some set of questions are 10 markers, some set of questions are 15 markers, and some set of questions are 20 markers. And 10 markers require less time, 15 markers require a little more, and 20 markers require much more time. So when you are actually doing your PYQs, you will understand that, okay, this is a question that is 10 marks. This is going to come for 10 marks. And what does 10 marks mean? 10 marks question means that it is coming in the, question 1 or question 5, which are compulsory questions. So when you take down all the PYQs, and if you see that there is any 10 marker question, it tells you one and only one important thing, that is something that you definitely have to do along with everybody who is appearing from maths optional. So that is something that you can't compromise upon, right? So 10 markers are going to give you that idea. Then you move on to 15 markers and see whether you are comfortable with any of them or not. If you are not comfortable, then you need more practice from the PYQs. And then come the 20 markers, which are very, very big questions. And these kind of questions come from topics like real analysis or algebra or mostly physics okay. And that is when you can make a choice whether, okay, this 20 marks is going to take maybe 1 month of my preparation to solve this question. So whether I should invest so much time or not, or should I invest time in now or later? So that is how you are exposed to a lot, how you will be attempting the UPSC question paper if you solve the PYQs. So that is really, really important at this sense. And another thing is that suppose you take some obscure topic like some topic from the last section of the 3D geometry, and you will see that topic like homogeneous equation of second degree. You will see that there is hardly 1 or 2 questions in the last 10 years when you solve your PYQs. So maybe that is something that you can leave for later, or that is something that you can entirely skip based on how much risk you are ready to take. So doing PYQs along with notes is something that is going to help you in many, many ways. So do include them as part of your note taking and don't exclude them. This is like similar to static and current preparation during GS. Many people do it differently. Static is different and current is different, but don't divide them. Same thing, same concept applies here. Whether even when you are moving on to a new topic, and suppose you are referring to some book. See, books are defined in such a way that is not for just UPSC. That is used by people who are preparing for a lot of examinations, right? And if there is so much content on it and you're not able to understand what part of it is something that UPSC requires or not, then you can just refer to the PYQs and see, okay, this is what UPSC has been asking for the last 10-15 years, and okay, only a part of it is important, so let me just do that, nothing else. So that is again the beauty of PYQs. So the most important concept part of this is PYQs. And syllabus, go word to word, go keyword by keyword, and do not do anything less or anything more than that. Why I'm saying anything less is because there will be some keywords or some topics which you might not have seen PYQs from before. Like there is a topic called D'Alembert's principle in mechanics, section B. There was no question until now, but there was a question last year on D'Alembert's principle. So people who might have left it, I think they have definitely suffered, and it came for a 10-mark question in 5th question. So you had no choice to but do it, or you should have left it, or you could have only left it. So 10 marks gone right there, right? So PYQs, I can't stress enough. I have told you enough. Do make it a part of your note taking, and definitely do note taking, right? And once you're comfortable, once you're comfortable with your note taking, you have done your notes, make it very precise, make it so that you are able to understand it yourself, revise quickly, then take tests. Okay. And about test taking, I'll tell you, the test taking is a very scary thing. Especially I was very scared of taking tests because I was really afraid I don't know if I'll score good or not, and I don't know if I'll remember the formula or not. One approach what I did was, instead of taking full length tests, I started with chapter wise tests, right? So I think then you can move on to section wise tests, and then you can move on to full length tests. I like going slowly, so I did it one by one. So if this is a fear that you have, then you can do it like this also. But at some point of time, you should start taking tests. And I think the fears about whether remembering the formulae or remembering the concepts will go away if you keep doing more tests. And this was also told by I think Mr. Kanish Kataria when he got his result. So I really took that advice and I applied it to myself. And the more number of tests you solve, you will remember a lot of things that you are studying from. And finally, I'll just check if I've written something more. Okay. And regarding the syllabus, I will tell you, there are 7 topics in paper 1, and 6 topics in paper 1, 8 topics in paper, 7 topics in paper 2. right? This is paper 1 and paper 2. And for people who are, they are people from different backgrounds. Suppose somebody has done their BSc in maths or something, they will be finding algebra to be very comfortable. But if you're somebody from engineering background with physics or mechanical engineering as an background, you will find physics part, the 4 topics, to be very easy, right? So I was one of them. I found physics to be easy, but algebra to be very difficult. So and because there's not a lot of time also, you so what I would suggest is do those topics which you're most comfortable with first, and then do those things which are left out. So at the end of the, even 20 days before prelims, I was left with algebra as a topic. And that is the moment when you have to take risks a little. So algebra has 2 parts, 1 groups, 1 rings. So I did rings perfectly. I did groups perfectly. Rings was very difficult for me, and that is something I left also. And I just went through some 10 marker PYQs, and I didn't do more than that. So do syllabus, do cover your syllabus, do those things which you're comfortable with, start with those things, and also make sure that there are some interlinkages between different chapters like calculus and real analysis. So don't do these things differently. Try to make them clear, do them together, like ODE and PDE. If you're able to do ODE well, then you will be able to do PDE. And if you're doing PDE well, then you will use the same knowledge in fluid mechanics also, right? So do find these interlinkages, right? And one thing, find the interlinkages and study. Second thing, start with things that are more comfortable to you. Okay. And I will give you some tips that I would like to tell you about, okay, which I think will really help you going forward, especially on the day of your examination. Okay. So first thing, the use of calculator. So if I ask you which topics would you like to use calculator, which you have to use calculator in, can you tell me? Right. What is? अच्छा ये हाँ, numerical analysis. Okay. Went back क्या? ठीक है. Some tips. First is the use of calculator. So, so you were talking about numerical analysis. Any other else? Any other thing? So let's include computer programming also. What else? Okay. So you can, I have used this in linear algebra also. Why? How? I will tell you, I will give you a small example. So take a 3x3 matrix, and the very basic question they'll ask you to is inverted, right? And suppose you're starting from a very big matrix like this, right? And you want to invert it. So you will see that there are a lot of row operations, column operations, and so on, right? But you can directly put this matrix in the calculator, it will give you the inverse. Okay, now I'll write the answer. I think you will use your augmentation with the identity matrix, and you will perform some row operations and so on, and you will reach the inverse, right? Right. So once you get this result from the calculator, which hardly takes 5 seconds, to put this in the calculator, and I think so, because if one is already 1 here, and you will see 4 is gone, 8 is gone. So based on this particular answer of A inverse, you can go back and just fill in the whatever row operations that are required. So I could just do this whole thing in less than 2 minutes. So that gives me more time to solve more questions. So this is just one example in which I was telling you to do it. So linear algebra, then you can use it in LPP also. In LPP, when you have to normalize different rows which are different equations, you can use a calculator because there will be a lot of fractions involved. So instead of doing it individually, calculating fractions on the back of the page, you can just use a LPP. What I'll do is I'll just make a note of all the calculator tips and tricks. I used to put it in my notes whichever chapter I could use this thing from calculator. So I will just try to make a list of all the calculator based tricks and tricks and I'll just share it with all of you, right? Okay, I'll answer this later. Right. So that was about calculator, and again in computer programming also they will give you. I just if I'm asking you to 758 base 16 to some base 2 or whatever, they will ask you such questions, things like this. Okay, now you will, sorry, now you will keep on calculating, doing all of this manually, but you will have an option in the scientific calculator to just do it in a single step. So you can do. I discovered these things only like 1 week before my mains, but they were really helpful because I told you, see, I finished my exam in 2 hours 45 minutes, right? I did it manually, and then I went back and I was trying to check my questions, and I put it in the calculator. I was getting a different answer, and the calculator was giving a different answer. And then I checked my calculations, and my calculations were wrong. So use of calculator actually helped me to score marks like that. And do keep a buffer of at least 15-20 minutes at the very end, right? I think I'm not able to remember, but there are still more ways in which you can actually use calculator also. I think I used in summation. There are many functions in which functions like summation, integration are also there. So those are the things that you can use. Sure. Yes. I think it's 991 ES or EX. I will check and I will tell you about it. I think FX 19991 EX. EX. Okay. I will just do it. Check it and tell you. Right? What is happening? Okay. So that was about calculator use. So right from day one, even if you're starting with linear algebra. Okay. What about so this was about matrices. Suppose they are asking you if 4 vectors are linearly dependent or not. Just put them in a matrix and check the determinant. Determinant value it will give you directly. So if it's 0, then they are linearly dependent. Then you can do your this. That is how you verify. It's not just about solving, but when you go back and check whether the solution is right or wrong, you verify your things using the calculator, right? And try to make a list of calculated tips and tricks, and that I think will help you a lot. And in numerical analysis and computer programming also, especially in numerical analysis, I think there will be 15 marker questions when you have to integrate an ODE to get the solution. I don't think you have to put everything one by one, get a solution at one point in time and then take at another point in time. You're using simple, small programmable codes. You can solve the entire 15-minute question in 2 to 3 minutes. So that is where a calculator is useful. So from day one, don't try to solve it manually. Just be very mechanical about it and see in which corner of the examination that you can use. So these are the places where I used. I'm sure you can use it at more places. So do keep exploring. And because calculator is allowed in the exam, so why not make the best use of it, right? Okay. Right. Well, I will talk now about make a list of all theorems and proofs. Because this is something if I give you an ODE, change the numbers, change the figures, and even change some of it, change the question very differently, you will still be able to solve it. But if I ask you a proof or a theorem, I don't think there is any choice but just to leave that question, unless and until you have sat down and seen what is the different sequence of steps in which you solve that particular proof. And UPSC asks a lot of proofs, especially in the last few years, and a lot of proofs are asked from paper 2 also, real analysis, algebra especially, and complex analysis. Especially section A of paper 2 is very dangerous in that sense. So do make a list of all the theorems and proofs, and just on the very first, don't write the proof in its entirety. You write it in your notes, but just remember the important steps, so that it's like just important. Proofs will have things like, okay, assume this particular quantity, and then let's say there is an epsilon, there is a delta, and whatever, right? So just know the gist of it, and then you can write it in your own words. But I will not suggest that you write it in your own words also, because there is a different mathematical language that you have to use when you're discussing about proofs. Okay, in the initial sense, just know the important steps, write it in your own words. But as soon as you keep taking more and more tests, you just start using the same language that is given in the books. Okay. That was about theorems and proofs. So that is another list again. So make a list of all the mistakes that you're doing. This is again a very important aspect of your preparation entirely, right? So I had a very small mini book. It was like, B5 size or something, and I made chapter by 1 or 2 pages per chapter, where I noted down all the kind of mistakes, and most of them were silly mistakes. In fact, calculation mistakes or calculator mistakes, things like that. So once I knew that I was making these mistakes again and again, and right before I give my full length test, I used to just go through whatever mistakes that I was making. Then I was aware that okay, these are things that I need to avoid. So those kind of mistakes decreased eventually. So do follow this practice. This is again one of the toppers again. I think he scored I think Atul Prakash. I think he scored 360s or something. I got this thing from him. And right. Then about timing per question. So I told you per question, per section, per question you take around 30 minutes, right? And further even subdivided, because if in one question you can have, in the compulsory questions like question number 1 and question number 5, you will have 5 questions, right? And in other ones, because they are 10 marks each, and in other 2, 3, 4 and 6, 7, 8, you will have 3 questions only, because they are 15 and 20 markers. So do time each question, which is 30 minutes, and do time each sub question also. So 30 minutes divided by, if I'm solving question number 1, so 30 minutes I have to solve 5 questions, right? So that is 6 minutes per question. So if 6 minutes per question should be your limit. There should be no more. If you want to exceed 6 minutes in solving that question, then make sure you buy that time in other question, which again you can do by using calculator or using a lot of practice. There's no other way. So that is how you time each and every question, because you have to be very calculative in this examination. And yeah, so that will help you. Then I think one another kind of non-conventional idea is that use of geometrical interpretation. And this is not exclusive to your 3D geometry. I'm talking about other chapters such as PD. There is a question in which they will give you some curve, u, let's say what u times 1 minus u, and so this is the initial condition, and u is a function of x and t. So this is x. So let's say this is u into 1 minus u. Okay, this is negative. Okay. So this is u times 1 minus u, and this is and you have to solve the differential equation, that is the diffusion equation. Okay, you solve the solution, you get the series solution, that's all fine. But I think you can go one step further and just plot that, and what you will see is that eventually the solution will diffuse of something like this, and eventually it becomes of 0 as time progresses. And this is exactly one of the figures that I made in one of my examination. I think that will fetch you maybe 1 or 2 brownie points extra. I don't know, there is no harm in doing that. So why don't you explore a lot of such things, right? And you will have 2D Laplace equations where uxx plus uyy is 0 or something, or 1, whatever, 0, let's just say. So if the boundary conditions are say 1, 0, 0, 0, then you will have solutions like this. Just plot it out, it will not take much time. Okay, so do make sure you use geometrical interpretation. And another area where you can use this thing is in calculus. There was a question this year, on same question was repeated last year also, about Lagrange multipliers, where there is a plane that cuts an ellipsoid. So what is the minimum and maximum value in which, some question like that. So, and they asked what it means geometrically also. And what you will see is that it will actually result in 2 spheres. One is smaller sphere and one is larger sphere of a larger radius, which are concentric. If you can explain it, good. and why not go a step further and just make a diagram out of it, right? It's not very difficult. Okay, so make sure you do all of those things, and you will have very good amount of space to answer in your questions. So make full use of it. There will be in some questions, especially in section 1, question number 1 and question number 5, these two questions, you will have 5 questions, right? For most of the questions you will have 2 pages each, but sometimes it may happen that they will only give you one side, so you have to fill the entire solution in one page. So do make sure you can handle that as well, because there is no, I could not see, this happened with me twice, that I could not see any pattern in which why they are giving 2 pages for a question, because for one question the solution was very long but there was only one side, and the other questions the solutions were very small but they gave me 2 pages. And in some questions which are 15 markers, especially like linear programming problems, they'll give you 4 pages also, but your solution ends in 1.5, 2 pages only. So don't be worried about it. Make sure in how much ever space is given that you are solving the thing in entirety. Yes. Okay. Sure, definitely. Why not? Yes. So his question is whether if there is less space, you can divide the page and write solution on 2 sides and write a little smaller. Yes, definitely. Why not? If your solution is taking that long, then it is taking that long, right? So that is about space management also. What else? Okay. Right, and I will talk to you about one of the most important aspects, which is again solution writing. So I told you I went from 227 to 295. See, a big aspect of this was my optional preparation. I could only complete around 60 to 70% of my syllabus. So that is definitely one aspect why I scored less in the first one. But second one also something is that I tried solution writing. So this is similar to answer writing. And you might want to ask me what solution writing is in mathematics. I will say in the most simplest terms, write your solutions in such a way that you would write in any board examination. Don't skip too many things. Don't try shortcuts. Explain logically what is happening between the current step and the previous step or the next step, right? And if you are using any formula, just so if this is your solution, and if you're using a formula at this step, please make sure that you are putting a formula on the box, right? So this will not even cost you time, it will not cost you effort, hardly 1 second deviation, 2 second deviation at each step, right? Don't write trivial information like sin square theta equal to 1 minus cos square theta, but if it's an able step, so okay, that is another one. But if it's something else which is not so trivial, do write it. Okay, so one thing is about mentioning formulae. So I'll talk about solution writing a bit. Box all the formulae. Next, use equation numbers. Because, for example, if you're solving questions like partial differential equation, if you're solving a diffusion equation, it will be a 3 to 4 page solution. And there'll be so many steps. So there is one step here from which you are taking, arriving at a solution. Then there is another, then there is another. So how will you explain where everything is coming from? Just mention 1, 2, 3, 4 and steps like that, and say at the very end that from 1, 2, 4 and 7 that I get this particular solution as this. Okay, and at the end you box your solution, box or highlight in whichever manner it is visible. So when you're getting a solution, even in PD, you will get a very big expression, sigma, whatever, so on. So do box the entire solution, that is very clear to the examiner that you have reached a particular solution. Okay, so don't skip steps, explain steps logically, write as much as possible, not as much as possible, but write in a very clear and logical manner, legible manner, and use equation numbers, use boxes, right? And one more thing I forgot, along with formulae, you write, suppose it is you're talking about convergence of a sequence. Okay, you will say by use of Abel's test or Rabi's test, right? But don't end there. Why not I wrote this part, and at the very end of my answer, see, because if there's a question on convergence, or there's a questions on convergence of integral, convergence of series or sequences, by if you just apply one test and you will get the answer in just 1 or 2 lines. That's the end. But why there's so much space also? Why do you want to just risk it? Why not just write what Abel's test is at the very end? For each and every, for a and bn greater than 0, for a positive monotonically decreasing sequence, write the entire statement and again box it or whatever. Okay, no need to write it there because this will take little space. Write about the test and do give the statement of each and every test or whatever that is you are using. Okay, I think that is again something that differentiates you from any other person who is doing the same thing, right? And even these test statements, they are actually very technical in nature. Just don't say for every a and bn, if bn is converging, then a and bn is converging. No, there's a very specific language that they are using. For every an greater than or equal to 0, for every bn that is a positive monotonically decreasing sequence, then if sigma an converges or something, then sigma a and bn converges. Okay, so do use these kind of terminology. And why I'm telling you this solution writing now itself is because when you're writing your answers to PYQs in your notes, or whenever you're solving PYQs, make sure you are doing this from the very start, because there is no point just doing PYQs and then or taking tests. Even tests are also some place where you have to inculcate all these things. So make sure you're doing this from the very beginning, and then after some time it will just become a habit. It will come naturally to you, right? And since you're writing the statements also, this is somehow some other way you will remember also, right? So multiple ways in which you can, don't have to sit and revise. You do it while you learn it while you are doing it, right? And okay, so I talked about planning. Time management is one thing I would like to, since you are in the very beginning, what I would like to say is that please give enough time for maths optional. It takes a lot of time compared to GS, and GS, although it seems like very big, very massive subject, massive set of subjects, optional still requires more effort than that, and the effort also pays off. See if you see my marks, almost 30% of my marks are from maths optional, right? So it will definitely give you that effort. If it definitely give you that result if you put in that effort. Time management while preparation, before main, before prelims, and after prelims also. Okay, so after prelims also you have to dedicate, usually you get around 110 days between prelims and mains preparation. So initially I thought I would give 50 days for maths and 50 days for prelims. Sorry, 50 days for maths and 50 days for GS. But as soon as I was doing more and more revision, it actually became 70 days for maths and 30 days for GS only. So that's how important it is to plan ahead. Otherwise, you will just be lost and end up only doing maths or compromise GS or vice versa, right? So that is again something you take care of. And finally, I will say what is it that you can do better than what is that you can do better than me, right? I did everything that I've told you, but there is one aspect in which in the final examination that costed me, is that kind of little anxiety or little panic that I had, that I told you earlier also. Where is it? Anyway, I will just write it here. So I told you before also that if there are 4 questions. This is paper 2 I'm talking about. This is section A and section B. 1, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I was comfortably solving this, and I solved one of the questions also, whichever it was. And these two had questions from modern algebra. And these 3 had questions from physics, numerical analysis or whatever. But so I solved one more also here. And the final decision was to choose which one from here or there. So 4 were done and I had to choose the other one. And I was so afraid of choosing an algebra question, which was so easy that it was a question that I didn't even read. But it was so easy that even I could have done it at any day. But I ended up choosing a question, and I left a 20-marker question, just like that, just because of the fear of algebra. So these things can happen with you also. But if you are able to cross that line, which I couldn't in the last paper, I believe that you can still score much higher than I did. You can easily cross 300 plus, right? So do not panic. That panic will go if you're solving many more and more test series, right? So please do that. Okay. And I think let's see what people are asking. How you prepared current affairs? This is not a GS class. Okay. When should we be done with math practice plus PYQs to be able to give ample focus to prelims without worry? What should be the timeline of math revision rounds? Okay, I was mentioning that about that, Abhi. So I told you before you start doing your prelims preparation, which is 2 to 3 months before May, I think, right? So that's when you can end around 70 to 80% of your syllabus. Try to end as much and just leave out the most obscure or difficult topics, right? And do all the things, topics that you're comfortable with. So 70 to 80% is a very good syllabus coverage that you can do before prelims. And after prelims, you can work on the remaining 20% and revision of the remaining 70 or 80% that you have covered, right? And there was one more question also. What should be the timeline of math revision rounds, right? So again, math revision, I told you, more than 50% of your time will go towards math. Yeah, right. And obviously, the more number of days you will have, the more revisions that you can have, right? So if you have notes, your revision time decreases. If you have solved your PYQs before, your revision time decreases. If you have compiled good questions, your revision time decreases. Especially if you have made a notebook of your mistakes, your revision time decreases. So I initially started with some random senior gave me some advice, not even advice, I would say just passing. Sanketh, do not consider your maths preparation to be over if you're not able to revise it 5 times before the exam. And I don't even remember who the senior is, but I remember that particular line, I have to do it 5 times. That's my goal. For you, it can be 3, it can be 7, it can be whatever it is. But I think I did 3 to 4 times revision, to be honest. And once, that's when I understood, okay, this is when I'm comfortable with. So do plan it accordingly. If you do create your notes and solutions to PYQs, then you can do, I think you can do as many times of revision as you want to. Okay, so that was about revision schedule. And are there more questions? What is your time allocation at different stages of your preparation? Please explain. Okay, so initially when I started, I used to give right from the first day onwards, I used to give priority to maths. And I used to study maybe around 7 to 8 hours a day, and 4 hours was given to mathematics. Okay, so that's how my timeline went. And this was the similar timeline until prelims. 2-3 months before prelims or 1 month before prelims, I left mathematics. And once prelims was cleared, then I told you, entire 50 days I gave to maths only. Then after maths was over, then I moved on to GS. Okay, and even when I was doing GS preparation, I was taking 1 or 2 hours each a day and attempting some questions. So I used to take 3-hour question paper, and I used to do 1.5 hours each day. So that is how I did not lose touch of maths until the last final day. So that's how my this preparation schedule looked like. Yes. 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 So, so 50 became 70, right? The first 40-50 days was at a stretch. And I think I was just doing some ethics along with it, no other GS, some ethics. Yes. Yes. Yes, right. Yes, yes. Right. So, frankly speaking, of course, the 35 days is not even enough to clear, finish the syllabus even once. So, I'll just tell you briefly what I did for GS was I did not spend time in reading again. I read once and I gave tests again. Same strategy that I followed for maths, maths also, I followed for GS there also. Again, I did not take GS1 entire test from the very beginning. I took test of 3 to 4 set of bullet points of each particular GS. Then, I mean, each GS was divided in 3 or 2 half sections that I took as tests, which were 1.5 hour, 2 hour tests. Then I moved on to larger tests. So by not reading enough and just answering questions only, I think that helped me to cover GS more than the fact that more than what I would have covered if I just kept on reading and revising. But again, that is a trade-off, like you said. Again, so first 50 days, 50, 40 days, 45, 50 days, I spent almost entirely 90% on mathematics preparation. And then rest, when I was doing GS, I was doing a little bit of maths also, like only tests now, no more studying. So that's how it was. So overall, you see almost 70% was maths only. And you can see again, like now that you can see from the result, you see that even if I spent less time in GS, because I had followed some right approach, right set of action, it paid off. I didn't have to spend that much time in GS. So I think you'll have to make do with what you have, which is the case for everybody else, right? Okay.
How should I start? Like there are 2 ways. I can go with the standard books.
Yes. I would. Right. Right. So that happens with UPSC. So the question is that whether how do I start preparation, using books or using just textbooks or reference books? You know, you need both, but at very different stages. One, because UPSC has a very defined set of, if it's saying that there is a particular topic that it will ask questions from, then the concept behind it, the kind of questions it asks is very different from any other examination. So I would suggest you take the notes which are available, because they will be fine tuned towards the examination itself. Otherwise, if you just rely on textbooks, then you'll have to first spend a few months time on in itself just to sort whatever is, to see whether which part of this particular concept or which chapter is important for this. And I think whatever books that are available, they take information from many books also, right? But that's not the end of it. Start with your notes that are available in the market, do those, but that will not, that is necessary but not sufficient, because you still have to do some more. There will be a lot of things that the notes will not have. Then to just cover up those 5 to 10% of the topics which they have not covered, you can use 1 or 2 reference books per topic. I think just 1. In some cases, notes cover almost everything, like linear algebra and all. Okay. Right. Okay. So physics, one of the biggest mistakes, physics preparation mistakes that can happen during physics preparation is that we tend to solve very, very big fancy type of questions. And again, if you do this thing, in physics, you don't have a lot of you have very big concepts. But if you look at the previous year's questions, I noted down, take any topic in statics or dynamics. If you see, there will be hardly 4, 5 or 6, 7 questions in the last 10 years. And if you will see, most of them, out of the 5 questions, let's just say there are 5 questions, 2 to 3 questions will be repeated. They'll be the same, literally the same questions. And 4 to 5 questions will be, the other 2 questions will not be very different from the previous questions. There will definitely will be 1 question which will be an exception, which nobody will be able to solve, right? So you can take, that is why I'm telling you. One more thing, I'll just, to address this part. So if there is let's say there is paper 1, section 1, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. And section 2, you have 5, 6, 7, 8. Physics part comes here, right? Right? So what you can do is, if you can prepare linear algebra, calculus, and what is the third one? 3D geometry very well, you can just attempt 3 from here. So do this part very well and just do only 2 from here. Okay, you prepare how much you can prepare. You solve only the easy questions first. You solve only the PYQs first. Don't do every question from that book, reference books or whatever. Solve the very easy questions. 10 markers you solve, right? And This anyway you have to attempt. So just leave one for it. And if you can see, there will be, if you are taking statics and dynamics, you will see that statics comes here. Both statics and dynamics are not coming in the same question. So maybe you can do statics and you can leave dynamics questions that are coming here. Okay. So that you will understand if you look at PYQs closely. So it's not like you have to study everything. That is not something I would suggest. You study 90%, 95% of your syllabus, but that 5% of whatever you can leave, just be very, I think that is also a very big part of your preparation. You can leave some aspects, but you should know what to leave also. So that's what I'm saying. See, if I'm in those topics also, you should not leave it entirely. Do those questions which are simpler, very simpler concepts, simpler topics. It can happen that you can get a 10-marker question from that, which is very simple. But if you had left that simple question also, you will just lose 10 marks, right? So this is how I'm saying. So first concentrate on, because physics is, from the very start, you are feeling like physics is something that will, might cost you. So prepare linear algebra, calculus 3D very well, so that 3 questions are attempted from this section. Then 5 anyway you have to attempt. So the only part is 6. Okay. So maybe you can prepare for this later or do simple questions, then move on to hard questions, right? So this is how. In the same thing can happen with this paper 2 also. Physics comes again in this part, right? If you can prepare linear algebra, real analysis, modern algebra, complex analysis, and numerical analysis very well, you can just straight away answer 3 questions from here, and just have to choose from one among the 3, right? So that is how you can hedge, you can balance your risk that you're taking. Okay. Are there any questions? Have you attended coaching? If so, nearly 6 hours. I could not attend coaching actually. I attended for 2 to 3 months for GS, 3 to 4 months, I think. And then I left and I went on to self-study for both GS and mains. Okay. Any other questions? Before, yeah, I went for coaching around 3-4 months for GS. Yeah, maths from the very beginning I studied by myself. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Right. Right.
But still it's like I still have that fear कि जो कल पढ़ा वो 2 दिन बाद भी करूंगा तो नहीं होता. Now the thing is that last time I studied math was in March end.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Now the thing is I have that anxiety, I have that fear like 2 दिन करने का याद नहीं रहता, 2 महीने में तो सब तो साफ हो चुका होगा. So now what should I do? Because and one more thing is right, I do coaching for somewhere. So the thing is that the notes are very comprehensive, but they're very bulky.
Yes.
5, 6, 7,000 pages.
Right.
I have made concise notes of 5 topics.
Right.
Around 70, 80 pages में तो 5 topics तो.
Right.
Right.
What should I do in the next 100
Okay. So 100 days again, let's say you have only 50-60 days for maths, which is again very less time. I would have ideally suggested, if you had not been appearing for mains, I would have suggested to make your concise notes. Maybe the notes that you made are not as concise enough, right? Which is what you're feeling. So again, it is a lesson for every one of us, that again, this is how we should learn how to make concise notes, which if you are not able to revise from it, there's no point. So now what you can do is, instead of reinventing the wheel, you can use notes of some other people who have done it. Even I could not prepare all the notes for every topics. So I think I used Karish Kataria's notes for 3D geometry, right? So because I could not prepare, I did not have time for it, right? So I think you can just refer to those notes. But what I would suggest is that once you just do the notes once or twice, don't wait there, solve all the PYQs from 2013 onwards. Then you will get that feel. Right. Right. Yes. Right. I was having that fear also. So to get rid of that fear itself made me write my own notes in very simplistic, very concise manner. Number one. And secondly, to get rid of that fear, I started attempting papers. And again, I did not start with full length test. I started with chapter wise, then move on to section wise, 2-3 chapters ka test, and then I moved on to a full test. Yes, after mains only. Test taking. And notes, half of them I prepared before prelims, half of them after prelims. Right? So that you can do. Okay, but do solve before you take any test, please solve PYQs first. Right? From 2013 onwards, you solve if possible, or go from year 2022 to behind. See as many as you can follow. Don't go beyond to 2013 because that's when syllabus pattern changed. Okay. So yes. It will be difficult in the very beginning, and so yeah, I think I used to take maybe 1 or 2 hour break in between just to refresh my mind. That's all. But I think we just have to sit down. It will come to you in few days, not from the day one. Right. Scaling, I see that I cannot we don't know about it, but I can just comment a couple of things that in the first paper, I was getting around 215 or 220. And my final score was 147. And in the second paper, I think I was getting 180 plus in some 40 to 50 marks. I was getting partial scores because I made some mistakes in the last few steps. So let's just say this is also maybe around 210. So this got me 148. So you can see scaling is very high here, very low here. I mean, lesser comparison, right? And the key to going about getting the highest score in mathematics, or getting at least 300 plus, is that paper 1 is going to be a very easy paper. Easy as in it will not use a lot of memory that you have, but it will have a lot of calculations, lot of steps, manipulating the matrices, solving ordinary differential equations. It's just a mechanical work. And because a lot of people will be able to do this, and if you are making a silly mistake, then it will cost you very heavily. And that is where you can see that scaling is coming from. I think this is around 0.7 and this is 0.65 or something around that, right? So way to go about 300 plus in mathematics in the first paper, don't ever make any silly mistakes. Keep enough time. It's easy. The paper is easy comparatively given in comparison with paper 2. Don't make any silly mistakes. Revise once you're done with your solution. And in paper 2 also, you will have some easy questions and some difficult questions, which are 15 to 20 markers, right? Easy questions everybody will do. And the actual personality, actual, proficiency in mathematics will be decided whether how you are handling those 15 and 20 marker questions. So, right, GS1, paper 1, don't make any silly mistakes, score as much as possible, right? And paper 2, score again, don't do silly mistakes in the easy questions, and the difficult questions, if you are able to do, then you will clear 300 plus, right? That's all. Anything else? I think somebody is asking about my book list. This I will create my book list that I have used. In some I've just used notes that are available, and in some other topics I use notes along with some reference books also, which are you should definitely see, especially in topics like real analysis, like a book like Malik and Aurora. I think, I'm not sure, but I think that is it. So that is definitely, if you are seeing that one book, you will read you will be able to do entire real analysis and calculus, each and every question in the last 10-15 years, right? So I will create a list and I will share it with you on Telegram or wherever. Right. So I was telling you this. So after 2013, don't go before 2013, because 2013 had a change of pattern and syllabus or something. There was some change was there. So 2013 until now, it has been the same set of pattern and syllabus, right? Now, depending on your time, go backwards about how many years you can go. It's ideally you should go until 2013, right? But depending on your time, you do it 5 years before now or 6 years before now. And you will see that, if you keep solving all the questions, you will see that a lot of questions are repeated. So no need to do each and every one of that. Because if a 3 by 3 matrix is given and you are asked to take an inverse of it, why do you have to do that 10 times? Even if it's 10 different matrices, no need to do, right? But if it's longer questions in ordinary differential equations, which are have slightly long solutions, please do each and every one of them. Okay. Right. So I think this is okay. Everybody, any other questions? Okay, then. Definitely hota hai. So like I said, see, this is not in my paper one. I was scoring around 215 or 220. So that was clear cut, like full correct. But in the second paper, I had 180 correct, like fully correct. And in the 2 to 3 questions, which are 15, 20 marker questions, what I did, I solved the entire question correctly. But in the last 1 or 2 steps, I, made some calculation mistakes. The answer was, plus minus or whatever was wrong, right? So if I had 180, I could not have gotten 148, right? So there were some marks that are coming from these questions also. So definitely there is partial marking, but I would say is that if this is your solution, right, and you are getting all the solutions, all the steps correct, the entire answer is correct, you will say you are getting 10 marks for it. But if you are getting 80% of it is as correct and this part of it wrong, you will not get 8. Maybe you'll get 5 or 4. Okay, so it's not a linear partial marking, right? So make sure you don't make any mistakes, right? And this 215, I'm telling you, the 5 marks is because that question itself contained 2 parts. One part was wrong, one part was correct. Okay. But in questions which involve a lot of steps, don't expect I saw 90% of the question wrong, so I should get 9 marks. Okay, that's not going to happen. Okay. Okay, then I think that's it. So any more questions? Just let's take the last questions. Okay, I think they are asking about interview, but I don't think this is the time. So okay, I think let's just end this session. Okay, thank you very much and all the best for your maths preparation. Don't get demotivated. I mean, if you're bored with GS, do maths. That will, that is the beauty of maths. You will never get bored, right? Okay. Thank you.